Moving from codependence into authenticity. This is what's happening today on Awaken and Ascend with Emily Burfoot, joining me today from Southeast England. I'm going to introduce you to her so you know a little bit about her. And of course, I'm Jennifer Regular, your host, and Emily graduated from Oxford University in 2006. She worked in office administration, actually, up until 2021. And while working there, she never felt good enough. She actually had mental health issues that needed medication. She always dreamed of a more lasting way to create good mental health. So in 2011, she began exploring psychology, meditation, quantum physics, spirituality, coaching, yoga, and breath work in order to learn how to find inner peace naturally. Her unique healing modality, Trans-inspirational coaching, combines all the expertise from 12 years of independent study of philosophy, human science, and healing arts. In 2019, she successfully withdrew from her medication, and in 2020, she launched Transpirational Limited to professionally support others with her powerful approach. Emily, it is so wonderful to have you here, and thank you. And it's an interesting word, transpirational. Did I say that right?
You did. You did. It came up from a coaching conversation actually. My coach misheard me and came back with transpirational. I think I was trying to say transformational and he said transpirational. I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Transform through inspiration.
this is super cool. And so tell me how that manifests for you and for your clients. What is transpirational coaching?
So yeah, I mean, bringing in all of the elements that you've described from my bio. This is I mean, fundamentally, it's about bringing in our spirits, landing in the body, and really grounding the infinite potential of our energy in a really authentic way.
Mhm.
And my clients are moving out of these patterns of people pleasing, victim mentality, putting themselves last, and ultimately like being dishonest with themselves
Mhm.
through this method. And what I would say really unites them, and this, as I've described as part of my past journey, is going from this pattern of really overthinking things, which is a trauma response to feeling unsafe in childhood. You know, the response is to overthink things, trying to anticipate and analyze the situation to kind of keep yourself safe.
Mm.
And it's about recognizing that that's a trauma response and that the unsafe situation, you know, it may be programmed into our bodies in some way, our cellular memory. But by and large, the unsafe situation is no longer there. And by bringing our attention back into our bodies and looking only to our spirit for guidance rather than some kind of external teaching, um, we can find joy in our lives.
Mm. Mhm.
And, you know, I was going to add something there, but I'll let you speak.
No, ask. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know, my sense is that everybody is in some way on this journey. Like some people are kind of more transparent about it than others. Um, I'm one of the more transparent people who's not afraid to uh, speak the truth and say when I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Mm.
But you know, I feel, and I don't know if you'll agree, I guess there's a strong pattern in the masses to kind of bury all of that discomfort, whether it's with alcohol or medication, or with other kinds of drugs, or with codependency, or with addictive patterns. There's this habit of stuffing the heart's desires down, because being aware of them makes us aware of how far we've really strayed from living in alignment with our heart's purpose.
Wow. Yes. And so, how do we bridge that gap, Emily, between codependence and authenticity and get back in touch with those heart's desires and feel safe to do that and want to be able to do that?
Mm. Yeah, I like to talk in general terms,
Mhm.
and like, rather than, specific case studies of clients who I'm working with right now. I guess one thing that I learned from quantum physics is that the observer affects what is observed.
Mm.
So if on some level this actually comes from spiritual teachings as well, because Jesus said, seek and you shall find, and ask and it's given to you. So if on any level of our consciousness we are complaining, then we're actually asking for things to complain about. And so the first step is to just recognize how powerful we are as beings, as creators, to influence our reality, and making sure that what we wish for is what we really want. And not just something that, yeah, I mean, I guess when we come back to that pattern of complaining about everything, we're really having this victim mentality, placing the power outside us. And, so how do we do it, was your question. Well, the first thing is to recognize the power we have. The second step is to recognize what habits we're using to give our power away. Then comes the journey of breaking those habits and setting up new habits. And then finally, kind of manifesting our heart's desires,
Mm.
ideally.
Yes. And how have you seen that working in your own life, Emily? What helped you get off that medication and find more natural ways of healing and then really coming into who you were and are outside of any kind of disorder or illness or any of those mental blocks that might have been inhibiting your best self coming forth?
Mm.
What can you share
It's
about
such,
that?
yeah, it's such a great question. And I went through this painful process of, I felt that whenever I expressed my heart's desires, whenever I expressed my, um, my belief in my own agency, whenever I wanted to share something sacred with someone, whenever I wanted to connect in, what came naturally to me, which was spiritual truth,
Mhm.
I always felt that that was judged as insanity in some
Mm.
way.
Mhm.
Because sanity in this society is defined as conformity within a certain form.
Mm.
And, my heart's desires, dreams are somewhere out here. They're definitely not in the norm bracket. And it took a long time to kind of heal um, that rejection wound, this sense of, and I would be lying if I said it was completely healed, because it's not.
Mhm.
Um, but having absorbed this idea that what I loved was insane, um, and then going through, these very painful control mechanisms of being medicated. The first step at that point was really to recognize that it was it was the judgments that were insane. It actually wasn't the desires themselves.
Mhm.
And what really helped orient me on my healing path was I mean, I got validation actually because I read this amazing book called The Gene Keys, and I can't remember if I mentioned that in our last interview, but when I read The Gene Keys, I was like, oh my goodness, like I am contemplating all of this stuff all the time, and this contemplation of Christ consciousness and bringing the new earth in, like this thing that is so important and meaningful to me, like somebody else shares that. Like that was such a light bulb moment. That was when I knew I wasn't crazy. And with that deep knowledge inside me that I was not crazy for wanting, loving, believing all those things, it just gave me this anchor to dig my heels in against the tidal wave of people who wanted me to conform to their ideas of what was normal,
Mm.
and really find create my own space in the world. And it's amazing, I must say, how, my rejection of the medical doctrine really coincided with the rolling in of the COVID pandemic. And at that moment where I said, no, I don't want these drugs anymore, so many other people were awakened to the dark side of medicine simultaneously. And in many ways, I feel it's connected in some way, like that mass awakening that happened through the pandemic. I felt very connected to other people, dark as it was through that time, but I felt for the first time as though other people understood
Yeah.
how incredibly alone I'd been feeling my whole life.
Mm. Yeah. And so how do you carry that loneliness? How did you manage that and then
Mm.
unburden yourself from that?
Hmm. You know, this I find my prospective clients are really aware that they are wearing a mask.
Hmm.
They are wearing a mask that's been programmed into them about how they have to be to succeed. They have to achieve, they have to look a certain way, they have to be perfect. They're
Mm.
not allowed to make a mistake. They're not allowed to be vulnerable. They're not allowed to access their emotions. They're not allowed to cry. And essentially, the whole of their life is an act. And I my mask was so perfect, I didn't even know I was wearing it on a conscious level until, to answer your question, I started to take the mask. And this was the point where I'm integrating. It's like, okay, so I'm not wearing that mask anymore. So anyone who's in love with the mask, then they're gone
Yeah.
because, they're not actually appreciating the real person underneath. And it's interesting about the loneliness because, you know, I would say it's a theme with the handful of clients that I'm working with at the moment, that there's simultaneous loneliness and company,
Mm.
um, and I wonder if everybody experiences that to some degree. But coming back to the integration and authenticity, um, in authenticity, you're honoring both your inner self and the outer world together. And so that's essentially the formula for healing. So create that bridge between the kind of cut off part of ourselves that we're not allowed to express
Mm.
and the wider world.
Yes. Oh, so beautiful. We talk about codependency, on other people or substances like alcohol or drugs or medication, but there's also codependency sometimes on our beliefs and our limiting thoughts and on certain emotions, right? And sometimes loneliness almost becomes a friend, I find, and we become codependent on this loneliness, and so as you're talking, I can see how that got transformed. And as you take the masks off, right? And then you get to shine in who you are. It's time for that mask to come off, to show up in your authentic self, including all the emotions that have been along there too, but no longer identifying with that, instead of identifying with the truth of who you are. And then also experiencing some loneliness from time to time. There's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that. That's part of our human life, our human experience. Just being careful not to identify with those emotions, right? Or the substance user saying, I am an alcoholic or I am a drug user. No, you're not, right? You are a spiritual human being, first and foremost, that happened to use alcohol and drugs in a different way that weren't very effective, and might
Mm,
have had it not the impact on the life that you had hoped for, to alleviate the pain that it might have been helping to cover up or seeming to.
mm,
Yeah, and recognizing how we can move from codependency, no matter what we might feel dependent on, into that place of authenticity, which takes so much courage and also curiosity of how life could be, what else is possible, and being able to open up and be willing to experience life, this human life, in a
mhm,
different way, and to know what that could be like as well. And so can see how we can move from fear into curiosity, from codependence to authenticity. Although those that are in it, that are in it, in those hard times, in those challenging times, can't see so clearly. I know that's
mm,
how it felt for me. I know that you've shared that's how it felt for you, where things just become obscure and we feel more into rejection than acceptance. We feel more into that obscurity than clarity and confusion and doubt over knowingness, wisdom, and insight, although they all exist. And we get to choose how we want to experience life. And, in just reading your introduction, I can see the kinds of choices that were pivotal in your life. And I know that represents so many people that are listening and watching right now can relate to those same or similar experiences and pivotal points in our life, those defining moments when we get to decide whether we want to be on medication or not. Well, we want to continue on our crutches of certain types of emotions, ways of identifying ourselves, substances, whatever it might be, or we take a risk in experiencing life differently. But it is a relearning, it is a rebirth, and it's not always pleasant and comfortable. Although we all want freedom, grace, and ease, and joy, and peace, and all of that is possible. And there's going to be some glimpses of that too. And once we get to start tasting that, then of course we want more of that, right? The longer lasting happiness, not the instant gratification. And I
mm,
feel like that's where people are waking up more and more about wanting something that's more, that's longer lasting, that is transformational, that is transpirational,
mhm.
right? And so I love the work that you're doing. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I wonder what it's brought into your life, stepping into this new way of being now. Emily, if you could share that.
I would say that the main benefit is just the sense of relaxedness that I feel most of the time. You know, a lot of, releasing this really judgmental inner critic telling me I was never doing it right because life had a right way to be and a wrong way to be. That's just had to go out the window. And so yeah, the state of comfort in my body as well, my comfort with difficult feelings, just loads and loads more acceptance, like more empathy, more feelings of connection, um, just and more pride in myself that I am not pretending to be someone that I'm not anymore.
Hmm. And deciding that, right? Not
Hmm.
pretending to be not anymore. Wow, that's really powerful. I'd actually love to hear anyone that's tuning in right now in the comments what you want to experience more of. Emily just mentioned a whole bunch of goodies there, joy and peace and the freedom and all of the things. What is it you want to be experiencing in your life? For me, I love experiencing wonder and joy
Mm.
and looking for that whenever I go. I know there's times when I felt very drained, exhausted, uninspired, and I'd go out and just try to refresh and go for a walk and clear my head. And then I started noticing again, noticing the sights and sounds of nature, noticing little things that would catch my eye on someone's lawn, for example, and started calling them my daily delights. And I would write them down, in my journal. And I did that for a month. And I got inspired again. It reignited that spark, something so simple. But it's that awareness that's choosing that consciousness and then recognizing those good feelings and that we want more of that. And so we start seeking out more of the things we love that bring us joy, that light us up essentially, because those other ways of being can be so dark and heavy and but also transformative, because out of that void, feeling void and rejected or abandoned, that we get to create. We get to create a life if we choose to. And so I
Yeah,
love
that's really
how this conversation
profound.
is taking us to those points where mental health and spirituality meet. You know,
Mm.
we don't always have to be diagnosed with a mental illness to know that there's a lot of thought disorders out there, a lot of, issues in our beliefs and our thoughts and the way we're thinking and believing about ourselves and about reality and society and authorities and all of that. And to be able to reflect on that, to create space for that and the freedom that we can give ourselves to thrive and not just
Hmm.
continuously look on the ways that we're surviving, and grasping onto the things that we feel we need to hold on to for that safety and security. And so I'm really loving this conversation, Emily.
Thank you so much. I just want to add one last point,
Yeah.
about, what I've really, because before we started the recording, we were talking about this sense of rebirth that is happening at the moment. And I really feel this is about the transition from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius.
Mhm.
The age of Pisces kind of being marked by this, you know, Jesus as the representation of God who is outside us and looking outside us for authority, and how that mode of being is really shifting to really every individual being sovereign and being capable and empowered to make their own decisions for themselves.
Mm.
And I feel like maybe I was in an advanced team for this because I've had this very strong faith in my own empowerment for a long time in a way that hasn't kind of been shared by the people around me, but I think it's something that we're going to see an awful lot more of. And it's not that the old way of being was wrong and the new way of being is right either. It's just shifting like how we're exploring being human.
Yes. Yes. Incredible. And so, how can people connect with you, Emily, to share more? I know there's a lot of people relating with what you shared today. And so, how can they connect with you? Where would they find you?
So I'm really excited to connect with anybody who's touched by these topics. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, and I have a website, transpirational.com. And I'm actually also offering a free coaching call with anybody who would like to explore how to really bring more alignment and authenticity into their lives. So I would be really happy to offer that if you'd like to get in touch.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really generous of you and so giving of your time and your energy. Thank you so much for offering that. And I'll make sure all the links are in the video description here for all of you to connect and take Emily up on that offer for a coaching call. It's pretty exceptional. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Emily, for everything that you shared. Is there anything else that you'd like to put out there?
Keep smiling, everyone.
Keep
I mean,
smiling.
yeah, just keep embracing every feeling, keep connected, keep walking.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. And thank you for each and every one of you that have been tuning in to Awaken and Ascend. Remember to subscribe, and we will see you again next week. Bye for
Thank
now.
you, Jennifer.
You are welcome.